Hello everyone, and welcome back to another session of Dark Souls PvP and another weapon showcase. This time I am using Quelaag's Furysword, and I am dual wielding them actually. And why? Why not? Now the reason that I decided to pick up the Furysword, or the Fury Swords, is because it's a weapon I really struggle at fighting against, and in my opinion, one of the best ways to learn how to fight against a weapon is to learn how to use that weapon for yourself. So I decided to pick them up, and I figured I probably should do a showcase on them as well, and just talk about them. So, getting started. The Fury Sword. It is a curved sword that weighs 3.5 units. It has a B scaling with dexterity and an E scaling with strength at +5, and it only goes to +5, I'm sure, as we all know by now, because it's a weapon made from the soul of Quelaag. It's a boss weapon, so yeah. Other things I should mention about this weapon: it, for me, has an AR of about 500 damage, if not 500 exactly, and it is doing split damage. Now, curved swords, their damage output is relatively low for the most part, and even though this one is dealing split damage, its AR is significantly higher than most of the other curved swords, or all of the other curved swords. So, because it is split but it's got a higher AR, it still ends up doing about the same damage as the other ones. Another thing that I should mention is the range of the weapon. And that's really why I struggle against this weapon. Its range is the longest of the curved swords. And because it's got such a long range, it always throws me off. And I really am horrible at judging how long of a range this weapon has. And that even goes for when I'm using it myself. I mean, I get hits on people that I didn't expect because I thought I was out of range. Another thing, actually, as long as I'm talking about range on this weapon, I do believe that when in the left hand, its range is slightly longer than when it's in the right hand, when you're doing an R1 compared to, well, an R1, you know? So, it really can be kind of deceiving and really throw people off. I know it gets me all the time. So, yeah. Now, getting started with the weapon's pros and cons, I would have to say that the pros, of course, include the typical curved sword pros, and those would be relatively good R1 spammability, and by that I mean its ability to stun, its speed, its damage. All of those things go into its R1 spammability, in my opinion. And, you know, had to define that at some point, so why not now? And actually, right here, we're going to see a pretty good example of R1 spammability with the red tearstone ring. How damaging someone who is poking at me with a rapier with Dark Moonblade on it. I mean, I don't know. I got lucky, I guess, but that was still a pretty good feeling, being able to win that fight. Because I really don't fight people who do that seriously. I mean, I just sort of mess around, either use it as parry practice or just sort of do stupid things, like go and try and fight them without any weapons on or something like that. And it never works. I mean, I'm going to die anyway, chances are, so why not have fun with it? But I'm getting a bit distracted. So, back on topic. The pros of the weapon. Other pros for this weapon would include, let's see, I mentioned all of that. I mentioned the reach briefly earlier, but the reach is the main thing with this weapon that gets me, and it's deceiving. That's really what it comes down to. This weapon has a very deceiving reach. Its R2s have a slightly longer reach than its R1s, when in the left hand its R1s have a slightly longer reach than one in the right hand, and it is a very fast swinging weapon. It can really cause damage to build up incredibly fast. So that really can be a pretty nasty combination. This is a very strong weapon that is very good in the right hand, because it can actually very easily be used to dead angle, which is something I'm not good at, and personally I don't want to be good at, because, I mean, I don't like fighting against people who only dead angle their attacks, because that's just boring. You can't block, you can't parry, and there's just nothing you can do against it. So why bother trying? It's like, I don't know. I'm getting distracted again though, so back on topic. Other things about this weapon that I should mention as far as the pros are concerned are the low stat requirements to wield it. You only need 13 dexterity and 11 strength, I believe it is, to wield it. And because this weapon is getting quite a bit of damage from its humanity, it is acting as a chaos weapon. This weapon acts as a chaos weapon. I should have mentioned that earlier. Because it's getting quite a bit of damage from that, it can actually do relatively decent damage with just the base stats. So if you had, say, 13 dexterity and 10 strength, then you'd be still doing roughly, or have an AR roughly of 430-ish with just the base stats to wield it and 10 humanity. So really, you got to keep that in mind with this weapon. You need your humanity, because the difference between having 10 and having 0 is probably about a good 100 damage. So really, it adds quite a bit to it and can make it very dangerous. Now, I should get into the cons of the weapon. The cons of this weapon would include how good people are at parrying this thing. I mean, if you get a little bit carried away with your R1 spamming, you will get parried if you're fighting against any decent player. And in this fight, man, thought I had him, but oh well. Really, you will get parried if you fight against any decent player. So it can really sort of hurt you more than help you in the long run. What else should I mention? Other cons, of course. It does do split damage, so I know a lot of people don't like that. And it is, as I mentioned earlier, the heaviest of the curved swords. And because it's the heaviest, it can sort of limit you a little bit on your weight restrictions. I mean, I don't know how many people can only have a weapon that weighs under 3.5 weight, but there's probably some min-maxed build out there for a weapon that weighs 2 units, like the Gold Tracer, or something like that. Don't know why anyone would want to do that. I don't know, but I don't see a point to, you know, stacking poise and having lots of health with the Gold Tracer. I mean, well, who needs that? Anyway. It can't be buffed. It does split damage, and people who are good at parrying this weapon will parry you. That's really all I can think of with the pros and cons of the weapon. It's really a very, very, very good weapon, and when combined with the red tier stone, that can hurt quite a bit. And it's really not a combination that should be underestimated. Now, you gotta keep in mind I am dual wielding with this, so I am slightly out of my comfort zone, and it does get me into a bit of trouble, so it might not be the best performance that I'm giving of the weapon, but I had a lot of fun with it, and it's really a fun weapon to dual wield because that R1 attack, it just comes out so fast from both sides, from the left and right side, so it can really, really, really help, and you can actually chain the hits together very well. So I can kind of see why people will do little setups like this with 2 curved swords. I don't see it very often, but I would assume that the same can be done with katana or any other curved weapon that's got a fair amount of reach. Or not curved weapon, but offhand weapon with a fair amount of reach. And really, it is a very good combination. So, overall, I would be shocked if someone hasn't played with the Furysword by now at this point in the game. But if for some strange reason you haven't played with it, I would definitely recommend it. Just to quickly recap everything, pros include the typical curved sword pros, cons include the typical curved sword cons. Other pros and cons would be that this has the longest reach of the curved swords. It is the heaviest of the curved swords, so pro and con respectively. And that is pretty much it. I'm sure there's something else that I can't think of at the moment, but oh well. Now, I like what this guy does. He does what a lot of people will try and do, and I'm in Red Tearstone mode, so he's trying to take me out with the bow. But you don't take out someone who has bow builds with a bow. You don't try and do that, because they know how to counter it. That's just the way it works. And I fought other people who have used bow builds, and I tried to take them out with a bow, and it always ends the same. You get into the little mind games with it, but yeah, that's a whole nother topic. Mind games in Dark Souls, yes, that does exist, and it's a pain. But again, I am getting off topic for like the millionth time in the video, so sorry about that, guys. Overall, fun weapon. I like it. I will be doing this little setup more. I highly suggest you try it out if you haven't. This is the last fight, so I hope you guys enjoyed, hope you found it helpful, and I will see you next time.